This is the Coach Tom Anthony Show on your home for Pitt State football.
To the near edge, and he's buried. Jordan Rogers was not fooled. Drops him back at the 11-yard line.
Highlights, insights, and what's next for Pittsburg State.
Jalen Fuchs, far side return for Pitt State, has a sideline. Jalen Fuchs is going to go after a block punt for a safety. Pitt State special teams strikes again. Fuchs with a first career touchdown. It comes via kickoff return. It is 22-7. You got to be kidding me.
Here's the voice of the Gorillas, Eddie Lomshek.
Welcome to the 2025 Pitt State Football Coach Tom Anthony Show. I'm Eddie Lomshek with Pitt State head football coach Tom Anthony. It is game week. Pittsburg State and Ferris State, Michigan from Big Rapids this coming Thursday, week 0 for Division II, the second year for this scheduling arrangement, and we can talk about that a little bit. All MIAA teams are going to play this week, but none bigger than Pittsburg State visiting Ferris State. Second straight year for this matchup in the season opener. The Bulldogs came to Pittsburgh last year. The Gorillas grinding out a hard-fought win. Ferris State would go on and win their next 14, a third national title in 14 years. So they've obviously been an outstanding program. Pittsburg State, though, doing everything they can do to beef up their schedule. And with that, we'll know pretty soon a lot more about this Pittsburg State team. Coach Anthony, again, second straight year opening with Ferris State, so a lot to talk about going into the season opener, and bottom line is there comes a point you need to play a game. I know coaches feel like they're never ready. Players feel like they're ready after 1 week. So we'll talk about some of those knowns and unknowns, but in a nutshell, what's it like when game week finally arrives?
I think you're just excited to finally move on to something else. You know, you've spent all summer kind of going against each other, you know, coming out of spring ball, going against each other, and then your first, week and a half, 2 weeks of camp, you're just focused on, again, just the fundamentals and technique stuff, and you're doing good on good, and we're seeing our offense, they're seeing our defense. So it's just finally, I think, refreshing when you start to get to, prepare for another opponent. You get to see different looks, and your guys kind of have something to look forward to now, in terms of the preparation standpoint.
Overall, how do you feel the preseason has been?
Well, it's been pretty good. I think the energy's been great. I think we've got a lot accomplished. Obviously, we're still, trying to iron out a few positional things here as we battle forward. But it's been really good, man. I've loved our energy. I've loved our leadership. Obviously, we got this was the first year in my time here, that we went into the offseason and didn't have a returning captain. So that was a big challenge, I think, for our team and some of that new leadership we have to step up. And I've been super proud of those captains and super proud of our older guys for kind of stepping into those roles that we lost to graduation after last year.
Seemingly a lot of competition when I look at position groups, and we'll talk position by position, but holy cow, the number of groups that have however many guys vying for playing time, how important is that to create that competition in the preseason?
It's huge. Because you want that, each and every day, you just want that competition to show up in practice, to show up in meetings, to show up in the weight room. You want guys pushing each other, and I think our guys have done a great job of that, not just where those position battles are, but also in the positions where there might be a guy that's solidified. I've seen a lot of younger guys, that have only been here for a year or two, really pushing some of our older guys and kind of stepping into, some playing roles for us potentially.
With this ball game, and we'll come back to Ferris State eventually and try and talk about what we might know about the Bulldogs, but it's obviously a Thursday night game, and it's not ordinary travel because it's a charter flight and all that stuff. So a little bit different. Is that different preparing for that during the week now that school has started here on campus? Talk about the differences of having a game where you are taking a flight and not just getting on a bus.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference for me is just the night piece of it. The Thursday night game, we've had to kind of back end, the last couple days and even into early this week of trying to steal some nighttime practices. We're normally, we are going to practice in the afternoons, but when that first game or two of the year might be under the lights, you got to get your guys, acclimatized to that. So we've been going a couple times at night just to get used to catching a football under the lights. Obviously our punters and kickers and returners need to do some stuff under the lights. So to me, that's kind of the biggest adjustment is kind of, changing that schedule from what it will be like during the regular season, once you get into more of your afternoon games. But, the travel piece, the plane travel is actually easier. You're only on the plane for about an hour and a 1.5 or 2 hours versus a 3 or 4 hour bus ride. So that part of the travel piece, I kind of look forward to more of the plane travel. It's a little easier than getting and sitting on a bus for 3 hours.
We've had a couple of spells of brutally hot weather this preseason. Football injuries happen, but as far as handling those elements, hydration, nutrition, how have you addressed that, and how's that going for you?
Yeah, I think Coach Williams, our strength coach, and Devin Holly, his assistant, have done a phenomenal job of just monitoring that through fall camp. And just kind of staying on top of our guys each day. We were pretty fortunate. During fall camp, we went in the mornings most days. So we weren't really out there for a ton of that heavy heat. And obviously, playing up in Michigan on a Thursday night, the heat and the humidity isn't going to be a huge factor. But us, at least getting a few afternoon practices that first week of school has been really good, just to get our guys, their bodies used to some of that heat for when we do have to see it.
And it's been obviously a huge break this week as we speak on this Monday with the weather, and that's very nice. And so, yeah, we anticipate not necessarily sweltering conditions in Big Rapids, Michigan, game night on Thursday. So for you, you mentioned, second year as a head coach. You came here in December of 2019 with Coach Wright, and then you sat out, if you will, the fall of 23, right? And so you end up coming back. Last season, didn't have a full calendar year under your belt. Talk about where you feel you are now with just the overall structure of things and within the program and the direction of things.
I feel a lot better just kind of about our, just the culture and just kind of the 4 pillars that we talk about each and every day, and our guys buying into that, coming in. Right after Coach took the NAU job, it was kind of a quick transition, into the off season, and you're trying to get a lot of stuff solidified. Then you're right into your conditioning and spring ball. Then right into the summer where you can't have a lot of contact with the kids. So being able to have that full calendar year to really just kind of implement some of that stuff, I think has been huge and really kind of help bolster our leadership, kind of strengthen our culture a little bit, for the most part over the last year. And again, just really been super proud of our seniors and our older guys and the leadership and kind of just what they've taken on and how they've kind of ran with it.
And it's also a situation where you have couple of new coaches on the back end of your defense, corners and safeties. How do you feel that transition's been?
Oh, they've been awesome. Obviously, Chase and Jordan were phenomenal for us. Great players here, great coaches here, and did a great job. And they had great opportunities to move on, and that's all. That's something I always encourage our coaches to do. I mean, that's part of my job. I feel like as the head coach is to help our assistant coaches, be able to go out and continue to grow their careers if they choose to do so, and help them to do that. So I'm super proud of Chase and Jordan and where they're at right now. And I think we hit home runs with both of them. Parker Schrader coming in and coaching our safeties, and Brandon Perkins coming in and coaching our cornerbacks have both done a phenomenal job, very knowledgeable. Both have great energy, and I've just been super, super proud. I know Coach Nutt as well, on the defensive side, has been very, very pleased with what those two guys have done since they've been here.
You mentioned the energy, and so you're in those summer practices and even some of those warm days, but I do like watching that, you expect certain things out of your upperclassmen, tempo, tone set, that kind of thing. But even as coaches, talk about the energy you want to see your coaches bring to make sure your guys are hustling from one drill to the next, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it. I've always, I learned that early on, way back when I was a young coach, is, man, like, your players feed off your coach's energy. And I truly do believe that. I mean, your players take on the personality of your head coach, and then they take on the personality of their coordinators and position coaches. And they're going to feed off our energy. Whatever we're coming out to practice with every day, whatever we're coming into meetings with, they're going to feed off that, and they're going to be a direct reflection of how we show up to the office every day and how we show up to work. So I think our staff hopefully takes a lot of pride in that, and hopefully our kids feed off our energy and what we come to work with every day.
You mentioned encouraging coaches to move on. That's part of it. Division II, certainly, you're going to have some guys move on. You've moved around a little bit. Pittsburg State, how many schools is this for you that you've coached at? I don't
know off the top of my head. I know this is the 5th state we've lived in.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think, that's part of the coaching, I think. And, you move around a lot, and some by choice, some not by choice. And I think, I could tell a lot of people that was really easy. When my wife and I were first married, we didn't have kids, or even when the kids were younger, to pick up and just move to another place. It's just, at that point, it's like another adventure.
Yeah.
You're getting to go live somewhere else, meet new people. That got really challenging, over the last 5-6 years. to be able to, for our two children, Pittsburgh's kind of home for them. This is the longest they've ever lived anywhere. So that goes into a lot of our deciding, our decisions as a couple with my wife and I. So, obviously we love it here. Our kids love it here. And we couldn't be happier to be anywhere else.
And with that, Bill Bly would say, hold my beer. Let me tell you about bouncing around some places, right? I don't know how many places he's been in his 40-whatever years of coaching, but his son Kevin, who's your offensive coordinator, I think Kevin went to 3 different high schools in 4 years.
I think he was at 4.
I said, where's your hometown? He doesn't really claim anything. And so, it's part of it, the bouncing around a little bit. So you mentioned getting to that point. You get the sense that through the preseason that to be able to do something in preparation for someone else as a coach, do you see certain things in your players that they are ready to turn the page onto a specific opponent?
Oh, definitely. They were itching. Even the last few days of what we called fall camp, just kind of sprinkling in a few things, in preparation for Ferris State without them really even knowing. You could tell a few of them some of the veteran guys kind of knew. It's like, you know what, that's not really something we do, or you're kind of talking about this thing a little different. So, those veteran guys kind of know that and pick up on that. And I think once you kind of do turn that page, it's not like they weren't excited about what you were doing. It's just kind of a new enthusiasm, like, hey, we finally get to prepare for an opponent, and we finally get to prepare for a game rather than just, seeing the same thing from each other each and every day.
And regardless of who the opponent is, it is awesome to get to that point. But when it is at Ferris State, defending national champs and all their success in recent years, the juices will be flowing, no question about that. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, senior safety Ryan Medeiros is going to join us, one of the Pitt State captains for this fall, and then we'll eventually get back to Coach Anthony and talk about the meat and potatoes of this 2025 Pitt State football team. Back with more right after this.
The Silverback Fund just helps us go above and beyond to be able to be the best in the MIAA.
You see it as a financial investment, but it's really an investment in people, which is what Pitt State's all about.
We recruit at such a high level. We are competing against a lot of Division I's now. What's going to set us apart and have us in the conversation is the financial part of it.
We couldn't have this success without individual donors, without the community support.
If you're on the fence about giving, come out to games, look at the athletes, and see what kind of experiences they're getting.
Welcome back to our season debut of the Coach Tom Anthony Football Show for this 2025 Pitt State football season. Eddie Lomshek along with Pitt State senior safety Ryan Medeiros on our player segment. We are in studio at Pittsburg State this year, and so if you're listening to this audio on our flagship 100.7 or through the KSHQ app, it does air there on Mondays. Remind you at noon Wednesdays is when you can find the video of this show through the Pitt State Athletics YouTube channel. So be sure and look into that, and a lot of ways to follow Pitt State football this season, of course, and Gorillas get it cranked up this Thursday night, the 28th, at Ferris State, Michigan. So player segment here in the second segment of the show. Ryan Medeiros with us. And for you, had a chance to talk to you media day in Emporia back in late July. That's almost a month ago. Hard to believe it's been that long ago. But as a player, what's it like when game week finally rolls around?
Oh yeah, this is what we've been working for the past year, especially after a hard loss. We've came into the offseason with a whole new demeanor, and when it's game week, there's nothing better than it's like Christmas Day, so we're super excited.
You mentioned a hard loss. The way last season ended, humbled at home, obviously, by Harding. And ironically, all 3 losses last year were at home. But that last game in particular, to bow out of the playoffs like that, talk about that. How much was that addressed in the offseason with some of the upperclassmen or the team as a whole? Yeah,
it was definitely hard after that last game, but, it gave us fuel in the offseason. And then obviously with a lot of new captains, a lot of guys stepping up, we kind of had to withhold that leadership and kind of just step it up another level. So, something like that doesn't happen again. So it's definitely fueled us in the offseason, and I think we've had one of the best off seasons since I've been here at least. So it's been great.
A number of things to talk about with you, and some of this you and I have probably talked about in the past, but again, out of Prosper, Texas, Dallas area roughly. Take me back 5 years ago, coming out of high school, and the whole process, you were dealing with the pandemic a little bit. So talk about your route to Pittsburg State.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I didn't even know I was going to play college football. I was a big baseball player, and then when COVID happened, recruiting for baseball is more like in person, watching you in person. So obviously football is kind of the opposite. It's a lot of social media, Twitter, film, and stuff like that. So when that pandemic happened, baseball was kind of off limits for recruiting. And then I got some junior film, and then Coach Anthony was one of the first coaches to reach out to me. So that's kind of where it all started, and then came on campus, and I just instantly fell in love with the campus. So it's kind of how it all happened.
How much familiarity do you think you even had with Division II football? Never mind Pitt State or the MIAA.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know too much about D2 football or Pitt State, but kind of when I got that offer, you know, people say there's people everywhere that know about Pitt State. So right when I got that offer, I had at least 3 people call me and my dad and, you know, say how special this place was. And until you get on campus, you can't really, you know, grasp how special it is. But this place means the world to me, and I love it.
Out of Prosper, Texas, suburban Dallas, big school. Any culture shock coming to Pittsburgh, America, kind of small town America?
Yeah, it was definitely hard at first, but I think the special thing about Pitt is just the people. So at first, when you don't know a lot of people, it's kind of hard. But when you meet the community and the guys on the team and the culture and the coaches, it kind of just makes Pittsburgh for what it is. So.
Ryan Medeiros, Pitt State senior safety, with us on our player segment of our season debut of the Coach Tom Anthony Show. A number of things for you as well, not just eventually getting here. You've waited your turn. Talk about your mindset over the last 3 or 4 years to become an every down player, and what were some things you remember going through your head 2 and 3 years ago while you were waiting to be an every down player?
Yeah, it was definitely special coming in and being behind such a big role model and leader, just not around Pittsburgh, but kind of around the whole Kansas area in high school. But Malikas, he was a big role model to me, All-American safety, played quarterback here, so we kind of knew the ins and outs. And came with that is Adam Smith and Jared Flood and a lot of those guys. So I kind of just sat back and kind of took notes from them the last 3-4 years, and kind of just the leaders and guys that laid down the foundation, and took that special teams role my freshman year. And then once those guys graduated, kind of took on ultimately being a safety. So I've definitely took a lot of notes from those guys and leadership notes and everything. And
your head coach now was probably your safeties coach, right? When you first got here. How helpful is that, maybe that relationship you've had with him since day one because he was your position coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's super special. He was the one who came for my home visit, the first one that came to my school. So, you know, when he came in, walked through those doors and the new head coach was announced, it was like a dream come true, really. It was pretty special, and it's been great. Coach Anthony was the first guy I met, and he's been great ever since then, and leading this team. I would rather have no one else in the country.
For you, elected a captain this past spring, one of 7 voted by the team. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's special. Just putting in all the work on the field, but kind of just getting the other half of it is the leadership and just kind of taking on the Pitt State culture. It means a lot to me because I'm not the most athletic guy. I'm not the fastest guy out there, but I kind of pride myself on just doing a lot of things behind the scene and just my character to kind of bring guys along with me. So it's definitely the biggest honor I've had since I've been here.
Yeah, so with that, you consider yourself more of a lead by example guy than a vocal leader?
I would say the last couple years I was more of a lead by example, but this year I kind of had to step out of my comfort zone and kind of be that voice and step up a little bit. So it started slow, but I feel like now I'm in a great spot to kind of just be the voice, and along with some of the other guys that have stepped up, it's just we definitely have to take on that vocal leadership role, and I think we've done a great job with that.
As a safety on the back end of that defense, so you're kind of the last line of defense. Talk about everything going through your mind that you see happening in front of you, and everything you're trying to process, run versus pass, and just kind of everything that goes through your head pre-snap.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to our preparation. I think our memo is kind of do your 111, so we have 10 guys around us that are kind of doing their job. So my job is kind of to make sure everyone's in the right place, but ultimately when that play starts, it's kind of just trusting those other 10 guys around you and doing your job and just knowing where you're going to be in that spot that the guy next to you is going to do his job. So I think it's very important on our defense that we just kind of trust each other, and that all happens from practice and preparation.
You're also an all-conference returning punt returner, and nothing easy about that. You're standing down there, and however many guys are running at you looking to knock your block off, right? And so take me through that. Ball's hanging in the air. What all's going through your head while you're thinking about whether to fair catch or make a guy miss, and everything you have to process before you decide?
Yeah, I think the thing about punt return is the more you think, it's not going to be good. You just kind of have to clear your mind out there and kind of just trust your instincts. Once that ball's in the air, I kind of feel the guys around me and just trust that the guys are going to block for me and stuff like that. But I think it's a lot of just kind of clearing your mind and just trusting your instincts and stuff like that, because when you get thinking too much, that's when you kind of make those mistakes.
Were you a safety and punt returner in high school?
Yes, sir.
You did both those? Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah.
So that's that
I
maybe.
think baseball helped a little bit with that too, just kind of tracking in the outfield and stuff. So I think that was kind of a big thing for me, is kind of the spin on the ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a job back there as punt returner. So this particular defense, Coach mentioned it earlier, no returning captains. There is some inexperience, and yet at the same time, you're one of a good example of a number of program guys. And so, yes, you're inexperienced, but you're not necessarily young. What are your expectations for this defense?
Yeah, I think our expectation every year is thrive to be the best defense in the country. A couple years ago, I think we led Division II in interceptions, and last year we had a lot of sacks. So I think it's kind of just trusting our secondary that has a lot of experience to kind of just get the defense going and be the fuel to the defense on game day and kind of just start fast. So I think it's a lot of experience from those secondary guys to kind of bring the younger guys along, and those guys have done a great job stepping up into the role.
Yeah, I think there are 4 total starting secondary players that have earned all conference in their career, and I don't know how many collective starts together or anything like that, but when you do have playing experience alongside guys on that back end, how helpful is that for whether it be communication or just kind of a feel for each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I think those younger guys, when you have a kind of an older guy right behind you or right in front of you, it kind of just makes them relax a little bit because they know we're gonna do a lot of the talking and stuff, and they can kind of just get in their own mindset and kind of just lock in on that. But yeah, I think having a experienced guy around you kind of just like I said earlier, kind of puts that trust in the guy next to you where you don't have to do too much because we're all going to be doing our job in our 111 to get them down.
Ferris State, Michigan, in the season opener, obviously defending national champs. We beat them in Pittsburg last year. You know that is not lost on them, even though they went on to win it all. But how about going to their place for game 1?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty special. My first year, redshirt freshman year, we had a hard loss in Grand Rapids, Michigan at Ferris State. So I definitely think for those guys that are in my class, that redshirt senior class, it gives us a lot of fuel because that's kind of where a lot of our seasons ended that freshman year. So even talking to some of the older guys like Malikas and those guys where it was their senior year, it kind of just gives us that much more fuel too, just to do it for them, not just for us, but the guys that laid the foundation before us, and just do it for the town of Pittsburgh too.
Very good. Well, hey, thanks for being with us. All the best. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Pitt State senior safety Ryan Medeiros with us. We'll take our next break. Coach Anthony will rejoin us on the other side.
This isn't just where you go to class. It's where you chase what's possible, where grit isn't taught, it's lived. Every drop of sweat writes the next chapter in guerrilla history.
In front of a raucous John Lance Arena have won it.
This is pride. This is your future. This is Pitt State.
The faculty of the school, there's where the students get the inspiration.
Welcome back to the Coach Tom Anthony Show. Eddie Lomshek and bring head coach Tom Anthony back in here. Coach, we just finished with Ryan Medeiros, one of your captains, and talk about him as a player. I kind of went through his progression in the program. Of course, this day and age, it becomes a little more rare for guys to wait their turn with the transfer thing. But how about Ryan Medeiros as a player and a captain for you?
Yeah, just super proud of him, and he's a testament to just the process of just coming in, red shirt and developing as a player, developing as a person, learning from the guys in front of you, and then in that year to 2 or 3, then that opportunity comes, and boy, he's taken advantage of that opportunity for sure, and ran with it and had a heck of a career, and really looking forward to seeing how he finishes that career, this year with his senior season.
Once your captains are elected, no doubt you meet with them, and you may regularly, weekly basis, whatever. But as a head coach, what's your biggest message to your captains about the expectations of them?
It's their team, and that's what I tell them. We have our rules and our pillars and all that stuff and the culture, but it's really now theirs to implement. It's theirs to make sure it's getting done the right way. So I always enjoyed that as a player when I had coaches that allowed us as players to not run the team, but it's your team. And if there's ever issues, they bring those issues to me. But those guys do a phenomenal job of just making sure everything's done the way it's supposed to be done. And that's kind of my expectation for them, and that's why they were voted into that role. And those guys have been phenomenal so far.
And Ryan, as a leader on the back end of that defense, but also I mentioned the punt returner. And obviously special teams can really turn a game because I don't know what the stats are, percentage of games you win, say if you have a non-defensive touchdown, but even a big punt return or a punt block. Talk about his ability in the punt return game to provide that momentum.
Yeah, he's done a phenomenal job. That was something we came to him, I believe, in 2022. We were struggling to generate some punt return yards, and we came to him one day, and I said, hey, man, you're going to go catch punts for Coach Cash today. And he did a great job, and we threw him in there. And it's been his ever since, and he does a great job back there. He makes great decisions. And that's one of the things with punt returners. You don't have to be a super, super dynamic person to be a very good punt returner. you just kind of have to be fearless, and you got to make really good decisions with the football, and he does that. He's, like I said, he's been rewarded accordingly. All conference punt returner for us, and again, that's going to be a huge part of our success this fall on special teams as well.
Well, and you get into games like we're going to play Thursday night at Ferris State, and special teams, it's not an area to be overlooked as far as the opportunity to factor into the outcome of those ball games. In Prosper, Texas, for Ryan, that was up here, obviously big school in suburban Dallas. As a Division II school in Kansas, I mean, where do you even start as far as there's so many people, like a Metroplex area, DFW? Where do you even start as far as trying to identify players when you know there's a bevy of talent down there?
For sure. I think the biggest part is having some coaches on your staff that have some connections down there. We were able to do that, back when we started recruiting a lot of these guys. A lot of this senior class, a lot of those guys are Texas kids. When you look at Ryan and Jordan Rogers and Jalen Fuchsa, and there's probably some more that are just Cleo Chandler's another one of those guys. We had Jody Owens on our staff at the time, who was from the Dallas area and had a ton of connections down there, which really helped us kind of get into there. And Jordan Rogers is a Waco La Vega kid. Well, we got on him because of Jermaine Carpenter. Carp's the DC down there. I mean, we never would have gone to Waco, Texas, probably to recruit a kid. But all of a sudden now there's a Pitt State Gorilla alum that's at Waco La Vega High School who reaches out and says, "Hey, Coach, I got some guys down here to take a look at." And then all of a sudden, Jordan Rogers is here and first-team all-conference safety. So just that connection piece is a big part of the recruiting process. It's not just going out and just taking random guys from random places. It's having connections, finding relationships, and then being able to build those.
We need to look at position groups, and we were talking with Ryan, one of however many experienced guys back there on the back end. So let's start on the defense and maybe work back to front with your secondary and all that experience. What are your expectations of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I told those guys this offseason, on paper, that's going to be the strength of our team, not just our defense, is that secondary. And, 4 returning starters back there. All 4 of them have been all-conference players for us. Jalen Fuchs is going to be a 4-year starter. Jordan Rogers led the league in interceptions 2 years ago, first-team all-conference last year. Christian Cross, a transfer that came in, was all-conference for us last year. And then Reggie King is a transfer that came in last year from North Dakota State. That's going to be a huge part of what we do. And then we got some young guys now that are ready to step up and help as well. Spencer Ward out of Nixa High School, who redshirted last year. Mario Mangini out of Frontenac is going to be a big contributor for us as well. So I think our coaches have done a great job of recruiting a lot of depth there, developing it at a high level, which has allowed us to, kind of have the strength of our group, be pretty good right now.
Move forward to the linebackers, and again, boy, you talk about experience that you guys had in recent years, not so much, but at the same time, I know in my conversations with Coach Nutt in the preseason, really loves the versatility of that group. How would you categorize your linebackers?
Yeah, hungry, young and hungry, and I kind of look at our linebacker group this year similar to probably what our secondary might have looked like in 2022. In 2022, we were starting a redshirt freshman in Jalen Fuchs. We were starting Rico Payton, who was our third corner in 2021, behind Jordan Hendy and Dallas Flowers. We were starting Malikas, who had just made the transition from quarterback to safety a year earlier. And then we're rotating between 2 other safeties in Jeff Forger and Mike Lacey, who transferred in, who didn't have a lot of snaps. So I look at it as a hungry group that's ready to kind of step up. You got Stephen Ward, who played a backup role for us last year, but played a lot of snaps for us and was a great contributor for us, voted a captain. And there's going to be a lot of puppies there, man. There's going to be a lot of redshirt freshmen, redshirt sophomores that have been waiting behind a lot of those, the Jack Barkleys and Gaskells, Luke Jennings. Just watching those guys work was probably the best advantage for a lot of the guys you're going to see out on the field this year.
With some of those younger guys, do you feel like you have quite a few interchangeable parts?
Yeah, I think they're very athletic. I think that's the one thing we've tried to do is recruit athletic guys. A couple of them, didn't even play linebacker in high school. And I look at a guy like Blake Carr, who was a high school quarterback, which is similar to Luke Jennings. I mean, Luke was a high school running back at Gardner Edgerton. So just being able to recruit really athletic guys that are physical, that you can just kind of plug into those positions and just kind of let them run with it. So super excited to see that group perform this year.
Yeah, a lot of versatility. And the other thing is with those guys, maybe especially linebackers, some of the secondary we talked about, when those guys are younger, how helpful is it that a lot of those guys have been your core 4 special teams guys?
It's huge because they've got some experience. Even a couple of the redshirt freshmen that are going to play for us this year, we were able to take advantage last year of that 3-game rule
Right.
where those freshmen could play and gain some experience. So being able to put some of those guys in there as true freshmen, put them on special teams, throw them in for a couple snaps on defense just to get them used to the speed of the game was very advantageous for us as well.
Coach, up front on the D-line, a lot of bodies. I know talking to Coach Everett, he's pretty fired up because he feels he's got however many guys that can play. And with that, first and foremost, I guess at the risk of overstating the obvious, talk about the need for depth in the trenches.
It's huge. I mean, you saw that, that was kind of what got us in that Harding game last year. We saw Jeremy Sharp go down third series of the game. We just lost a ton of that interior depth on our defensive line, and it really ended up costing us as the game goes on. So being able to build that depth, recruit, develop those guys. To me, in order to make a good run at a really good season, you got to be probably 3 deep, especially on the interior defensive line, just because of how physical the game is for those guys and the ability to just keep them fresh throughout the game, keep them healthy as the season moves on.
With that, when you look at maybe your interior D lineman, there a guy or two that you guys look at as kind of the bell cow that's he's unquestioned leader up there for you?
Well, I think from a playing standpoint, it's probably Jeremy Sharp. Jeremy's not really going to say much. Getting 1 or 2 words out of Jeremy is tough, but boy, he just comes to work. He works hard. And he's played a lot of snaps for us over the last few years, and is going to be a huge part of our defensive line this fall. A couple young guys have stepped up. Osahan, was a guy that wasn't available for us last fall. He's going to be a huge piece of what we do this fall. Isaiah Alexander, Sam Holtz is a guy that's kind of played a little bit of D tackle, a little bit of nose guard, and we'll kind of use him at both spots. Sam's played a lot of snaps for us last year. Sam's a true junior out of the Memphis area. So just really excited kind of about that depth and about how well I think Coach Everett has recruited that position too over the last few years to now be able to have a bunch of those guys to replace, Cole Sample, who was a 5-year starter for us. Really excited to see those guys perform this fall as well.
How about your defensive end group? Where would you start there?
Yeah, I mean, James Smith is kind of the anchor there. James, played a lot of snaps for us last year. He kind of split, him and Malik Berry kind of split time there at that defensive end position. James is a phenomenal player, will be very important for us as well. And then the one I'm really excited about is Kiro Martin, who actually had to play for us last year the first 3 games because Malik was out with the Rhabdo deal, and Kiro did a phenomenal job for us in those first 3 games, and then we decided to shut him down so we didn't burn his redshirt year. So very excited about Kiro as a redshirt freshman this fall and what he's going to be able to do for us too. Super athletic, super smart, can do a lot of different things for us. And then on the other side, that Leo position, we get Eli Wilcox back, who wasn't available for us last fall. Elijah Morton was another one of those true freshmen that played in 3 games, had a couple sacks against Fort Hays for us. And then we were able to kind of shut him down and keep his red shirt as well. So he's going to be a big piece of what we do too. So a couple older guys, I think, on the edge with James and Eli, and then you're sprinkling in a couple young guys that got a little playing time for us last year as true freshmen, and we were able to keep their red shirts.
You mentioned that Leo position, that edge, and you think about Brandon Stegall, the versatility. Is there an ideal type of player for that you can – speed rush, but also athletic enough to drop in coverage?
Yeah, I think it's Eli. Eli, I think, is similar to Brandon. He might not be quite as fast as Brandon was, but he's 3 inches taller and probably 15 or 20 pounds heavier. Eli's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, played tight end and safety in high school, was an all-state basketball player, was a 3 or 4 sport kid, and then we brought him in. We were able to put some weight on him, and I think he's kind of that prototypical kind of body of what you want there, a big kid that's physical and can flip his hips and run a little bit.
Defense for the Gorillas. We talked about playing time, competition for that earlier, and that'll be the case. We'll see a lot of guys sprinkled in these early games, and hopefully a lot of contributors will mean a lot of very good results for Pitt State defense. It has a chance to be pretty good. We need to take our next break. When we come back, we'll flip it over on the offense. Everybody wants to know about quarterback, but a lot of other things to talk about on that side of the ball, and eventually we'll talk about Ferris State for Thursday's opener. Back with more of the Coach Tom Anthony Show right after this.
Are you ready to experience a university that goes beyond the classroom? At Pitt State, we prepare you to conquer the world after graduation. With award-winning programs in technology, business, science, and more, you'll gain the skills and knowledge to thrive in today's ever-evolving economy and communities. Don't just get ready. Be more than ready for whatever comes your way. So what are you waiting for? Kickstart your path to success at Pitt State today.
Eddie Lomshek back with Pitt State head football coach Tom Anthony on our season debut of the weekly show. Again, audio airing on our flagship 100.7 and through the KSHQ app on this Monday night. Noon Wednesday, Pitt State anticipates releasing the video of this show each week through the Athletics YouTube channel. So you can follow along that way if there's anything you miss on Monday nights. And so appreciate you being with us in whatever capacity, and a lot of excitement around Gorilla Nation for this highly anticipated opener on Thursday night at Ferris State of Michigan. Coach, talked about the defense last segment. Over on the offensive side of the ball, I wish I had $1 for every time I was asked, right? Who's going to be your starting quarterback? I won't hold your feet to the fire, but bottom line, talk about your quarterback position through the preseason.
Been incredible, just the way all those guys have showed up to work each day, just competing with each other, coaching each other, encouraging each other. It's been really, really cool to kind of see the maturity, I think, of all those guys in that room. Again, we're going to continue to evaluate that, over the next couple days, and I think we got 4 guys, I think, that all bring something different to the table, and again, just been very pleased with all those guys and with KB and kind of how he's managed that room as well. So excited to see, whoever it is, we'll make that decision probably later in the week, but excited to see whoever it is roll out there and hopefully have a good game for us.
With that, second year for Kevin Blau as offensive coordinator, and I know last year at times, first and foremost, you were not healthy up front, and that's a huge part of it. But when you're talking about the second year for a coordinator, especially for returning players, but he's had a chance to go back and look and get a feel for things in this league and that. What are your expectations of that side of the ball, just as far as maybe more consistency or a more consistent identity?
Yeah, I think there's more, I call it comfort and confidence. There's more comfort with the players. There's more confidence with the players in what we're doing offensively because now they've been in it for an entire year. And there's more comfort now with Kevin. More confidence with Kevin just in who he has, who he's working with, and kind of what he's going to see throughout the season as well. So I think anytime you bring in a new offense or a new defense, it doesn't matter which side of the ball, there's going to be some learning curves. A fortunate thing for probably me coming in as the head coach is not a ton change when I left, with what Lynn was doing, and not a lot change when I came back. So there's been a lot of comfort, I think, and confidence and consistency in the defense over the last 4 to 5 years because not a ton has changed. When you bring in a new offense, there's going to be some learning curves, and I think we saw a little bit of that last year, and that was to be expected. But to have a full off season now, I think there's a lot more. I call it comfort and confidence, kind of in what we're doing.
And I guess in some ways everybody wants to have that guy. We had Chad Dodson for 3 years, started at quarterback. As a head coach, talk about being in a position, of maybe considering more than one guy. Would you rather have that guy is going to be out there every down? Yeah,
I think that's been a fun part of it for me. When I came back, you kind of knew, Ty was transferring. Went with coach to NAU. You knew Chad was going to be the guy, so we kind of knew what we had, and we knew Chad was going to be the guy. And then it was all right. What can we do to build the offense around what we have? So now it's all right, man. We got a couple moving parts here, a couple different guys with a couple different skill sets. So that part's been fun to kind of play with this offseason. All right, this guy kind of does this really well. This guy can do this really well. And now how can we morph it into, having a very successful offense? And I think Kev and the whole offensive staff have done a phenomenal job with that.
Well, again, it helps if you have everything in place up front, which, again, last year, you talk about moving parts, and you had a couple of guys literally held together by tape, right, late in the season, and that's not ideal. Those guys play in the trenches. They have a collision on every down. Talk about your offensive line. How do you feel where you are compared to a year ago?
I think we're healthy, which is nice, and obviously having 2 phenomenal leaders back there with Drew and Carter have been huge for this offseason, just continuing to develop the continuity of that group, and then being able to plug in, both tackles that have playing time for us. It's not like those guys never played. D. Graff and Kobe James have both played snaps for us. A couple of the guards that'll kind of rotate at that other guard position also had some playing time for us last year with Pecco, and Quentin Bradley was another one of those true freshmen that we used a little bit. And still kept his red shirt for him. So he's a phenomenal player out of the North Kansas City area. Bryson Norris will be another guy that wasn't available to us last fall due to some transfer restrictions. He had to sit out and do a year of residency. So very kind of excited just to kind of see that group continue to grow. And I think they've done a phenomenal job all fall camp. It's a very tight-knit group. I think they're working really well together right now.
Drew Daniels played as a true freshman in this league. That's a remarkable thing for a lineman, especially when you consider about matching up physically. Guy with great local ties, dad from Pittsburgh, mom from Fort Scott, out of Andover Central, 2-time second-team All-Conference. Talk about Drew. He's played guard, he's played center, his acumen for the game and just everything he kind of brings to the table as that guy up there.
He's got a ton of knowledge, which is huge, which is what you need. Drew's going to be playing center for us. You need that out of your center. They got to be very knowledgeable. They got to know what's going on. And I think the really good part for Drew is now he's surrounded, again, by other guys that, he's got Carter right to the left of him. Carter played every snap for us last year and just absolute dog. One of our hardest workers. Carter just shows up every single day just with tons of consistency. Again, a phenomenal leader, not just on the offensive line, not just on our offense, but for our entire team as well. So I think those two guys have really kind of taken that group and just kind of ran with it, and it's been fun to see those guys grow.
In the backfield, Cleo Chandler, clearly a returner for you, most experienced guy. He was an honorable mention all-purpose back last year because of, I think people see the ability to catch the ball, and we've seen him in pass pro as well. So talk about your expectations for Cleo kind of being RB1 now.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I was really, I'm obviously always excited for all of our captains when they get voted captain, but I think for me, selfishly, Cleo was probably the one I was most excited about, just to see his growth and kind of his time here, not just as a football player, but as a person and as a leader, over the last 4 to 5 years that he's been here. To be rewarded with that, I think is a testament to just how far he's come as a man, how far he's developed himself as a football player, and how far he's brought himself as a leader. And he's been just absolutely exceeded all my expectations over the past about 9 months now as a captain. So very, very excited. I think he's as healthy as he's ever been. He's been kind of nicked and banged up the last couple of years, and really kind of poured himself into that this offseason of getting himself healthy, getting his body right, getting it ready to go for the fall. So, I'm excited for that kid to see what he does this year, and I think he's setting himself up to have the chance to have a really good season for us.
How about your backs collectively then after him, the stable of backs, and just kind of the competition for playing time behind Cleo?
Yeah, it's been really good. I think there's a kind of a handful of guys there that I think we're gonna rely on them. Obviously, no running back can play every snap for you, so you got to have a RB2 and 3 and even RB4 at times as well. And I think we have a lot of guys that have a lot of different skill sets. We moved Tyler Ross over there. Tyler transferred to us last year out of Harding. He was a quarterback there. We moved him to linebacker. He'd never played defense. And then this spring moved him to running back, and that's kind of more of his home. He's used to having the ball in his hands, so he's been really good for us there. Dylan Van is a really dynamic guy out of the St. Louis area, transferred to us from Western Illinois last year. He can do a lot of different things, in and out of the backfield. Zamari is a transfer we brought in, and I think he's done a great job this camp. And then we got Jacoby Smith as well, who's been in the program for 4 years, and Jacoby's a pretty versatile guy as well. So I think all those guys have done a great job of just kind of knowing what their role is and knowing how KB and the offense might potentially use them, and they've really bought into that.
Staying with those skill guys out on the edge at receiver, you have a returning all-conference player in Karan Parchman, but you've added some receivers. Had one came in over the spring, couple over the summer, and so again, talk about the competition and kind of the versatility of your receiver spot.
Yeah, really good. Obviously, Karan has kind of stepped up and kind of become the guy, I guess if you want to say it, in that room, the leader in that room. Grayson Holbert's another one who's Grayson's season was cut short last year by a broken hand, so we had to shut him down after the third game, and so then he ended up taking a redshirt year. And Grayson's been awesome for us. And then obviously, the two transfers, Jalen Travis and TJ Atkins, have both come in. Trav came in the spring, TJ this summer, and have really picked up on the offense, done a great job. Orlandis Mitchell and Cam Gillespie are both returners that were backups for us last year that have been battling. So again, that's another one of those rooms, I think, similar to quarterback. There's been a lot of guys that have just been competing, and it's elevated their play, each and every day in practice, and you've seen that. So again, very excited for that group as well.
And then tight ends, the versatility required there. I know they work with the O-line, they work as pass catchers, and you have some newness there. You had kind of an embarrassment of riches at tight end when you talk about experience over the last 3 years. Don't necessarily have that this year. So what are your thoughts on your tight end position?
I think what we have, obviously, for a few years we had DG, who was probably more of a receiver than he was a tight end, and then Will came in. I think Will did a great job. I think what we have now is, we got a couple guys that are just tough, hard-nosed, more like just traditional man, I'm gonna knock your teeth in, kind of tight end, and then I'm gonna catch a few balls here and there, and they take pride in that. Both, I think, between Jay Knight and Luke are both extremely athletic, both extremely versatile, and we're gonna ask them to be that. Obviously we use Luke in other ways as well offensively, but both those guys were huge special teams contributors for us last year. I mean, you talk about that Northwest game, Jay Knight blocks the punt, Luke scoops it and scores it. So that shows you kind of their versatility and their athleticism. And again, both phenomenal kids, phenomenal leaders for us, extremely hard workers. So again, I'm excited for that room too. We might not have the 6'7", guy that we had the last few years, but I think we're going to have more just that traditional, just kind of tough grind, kind of grinder, tight end type body.
Coach, third phase of the game, we touched on it earlier, special teams. We were talking about Ryan and punt returning ability, but again, bottom line, you don't want to leave any stone unturned. Talk about the emphasis you guys put on the different phases of the kicking game.
For sure. That's a huge part of it, and that's been a huge part of, our success, over the last few years. We've had some really good kickers here the last few years, and having Austin back. Austin was, again, he was one of those guys that was kind of dinged up all year last year, had a hip flexor issue coming off a phenomenal true freshman season in 2023, but Austin's back healthy, kicking very well. Obviously, our other returner, Jalen Fuchsa, pretty dynamic kick returner for us as well, and he'll be a big part of what we do. And then we were able to bring in Tyler Antle, local punter for us, that we'd actually offered out of high school and kind of had a different option and went that route. So being able to have Tyler back, and Tyler's been doing a great job for us as well. So, obviously still kind of ironing through who our kickoff guy is going to be. Obviously that was Gentry Cole's job there for the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And boy, Gentry did a phenomenal job for us. He actually ended up forcing a fumble in the Ferris game, last year on a kickoff. So Gentry brought a different dynamic probably to the kicking game. And I always give our kickers a hard time every day in practice. I'm like, hey, 3 of the hardest hits I ever saw on kickoff here was Gentry Cole running down and hitting a returner. So they kind of laugh at that and take pride in that. So we're kind of still ironing through who our kickoff guy is going to be, but some of that other stuff is pretty solidified, and those guys have been doing a really good job for us.
And then I kind of touched on this earlier, your cover guys, those linebacker, defensive back types. You go out there and watch practice and the running they get in, and talk about the attention to detail with those guys. If you're supposed to be in this lane and the ball's here, make sure you're there. Talk about how important it is for those guys to understand those things.
For sure. Especially when you're talking about kickoff and punt, a lot of those guys are defensive players. They know how to see blocks. They know how to get off blocks. They know how to fit up run game type things. Which is why we try to put, in my opinion, a lot of defensive type bodies on your punt and kickoff units. And then your return units, to me, are probably more your offensive guys. Those guys are used to blocking in space. When you talk about kickoff return, having to set up, block somebody, so we try to kind of balance that out a little bit. And, obviously anybody that starts for us on offense or defense, the expectation is you're still going to help some out on special teams. And that's part of that balancing act too, is, who do we need to put where? How can they help us be successful? And just trying to find that kind of happy medium.
All right, well, it all adds up. Offense, defense, special teams. Everybody wants to have as complete team as possible, and we'll hope that's the case for the Gorillas. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, spend a few minutes and talk about Thursday's opener at Ferris State, Michigan, headlining Division II here in Week 0. Back with more of the Coach Tom Anthony Show right after this.
Music, theater, dance, art. We have it all at the Bicknell Family Center for the Arts on the campus of Pittsburg State University. Catch a Broadway show, speakers like Rainn Wilson and Peyton Manning, and talented performers from right here in Pittsburgh and across the country in this beautiful performing arts center. We hope to see you soon.
Welcome back to our final segment of this season debut of the Coach Tom Anthony Show. Eddie Lomshek along with the Pitt State head football coach. The Gorillas at Ferris State, Michigan, Week 0. Coach, this legislation was okayed going into last year, and so it allows you to play a week earlier with the Division II calendar, and eventually we'll have an off week built in late October. Last year actually had 2 of them. The league was in a little more transition last year with Northeastern State in limbo, and Lincoln had gotten out of the league, and so not everybody had enough notice to fill those games. But bottom line, when you start looking at the schedule, once this legislation passed, talk about your approach to playing in Week 0 to maybe ensure that bye later.
Yeah, for sure. I think our priority number 1 was to go find a quality opponent, and testament to, Jim Johnson, our athletic director, going out and finding the Ferris State game. Because that's, to me, And I think after coming out of year one, probably saw the value of strength of schedule when it comes to, if you want to have a shot in the postseason, man, that strength of schedule number is crucial and very, very important. So I'm very thankful that we scheduled the Ferris State game last year, and very thankful this year for our non-con schedule, with Ferris and Grand Valley on top of playing an incredibly loaded MIAA schedule. I think that's one thing I learned in year one at the Division II level. If you want to have a shot at making the postseason and making a run in the postseason, that strength of schedule number better be pretty high.
On top of that, this year, MIAA, number one, everybody's playing in week 0. All 10 teams are going to play either Thursday night or Saturday here in week 0, but new regional assignments this year. So the GLIAC, where Ferris State and Grand Valley reside, and the Great Lakes Valley out and in with the RMAC and Lone Star. The MIAA and Great American stay in the region. Any particular thoughts to the new regional alignment?
No, I mean, we're just worried about week 1 and playing Ferris, and then, after that we'll move on to the next thing. And again, that's just kind of been our stress with our guys, is just having this a very short-term get-one mentality and just focus on the task at hand today. And if we can do that and do it at a high level, then we're going to set ourselves up to have another opportunity to do that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And then those things 3 months from now will take care of themselves if we're able to take care of the present and what's happening right now.
Ferris State in the opener, going to their place, and obviously they're going to be excited to host us after we beat them in Pittsburgh again. Even though they went on to win it last year, that one blip on their resume from last year is going to be something they draw on. Physicality. How much of this game starts and stops right there?
That's everything to me. They're a team that wants to run the football. I think they pride themselves in running the football. Coach Anise has done just a phenomenal job. To me, he's kind of the standard right now, not just in Division II football, but in all of college football. 3 national titles in the last 4 years. I think 10 straight postseason appearances. Coach has done just a phenomenal job with that program, developing players. And he's the type of guy, man, that with this NIL and transfer stuff, that guy gets his roster just stolen from him almost every year and just finds a way to replace it with more players. So, again, just a testament to Coach, and I'm just super excited we get to go up there and play such a great football game, and I know it's going to be physical. I told our guys the other day, man, that you're going to have 2 talented teams, 2 great coaching staffs. It's going to be a great football game, and it's going to come down to who can execute at the highest level.
One thing about it, there are always unknowns. We're not sure what they're going to do at quarterback. We might have an idea because they have a guy that's been there. They're not sure what we're going to do at quarterback. Talk about dealing with some unknowns in that season opener.
Yeah, I think always in week 1 you got to be careful. I think you have so much time, and I've kind of tried to stress this with our coaches. You have so much time to prepare that sometimes you might overthink things, right? There's a lot of unknowns for them. There's a lot of unknowns for us. Both teams are going to have some new players playing in different positions, so you got to be careful a little bit about what you're going to ask your players to do, right? Because you have new guys out there trying to do stuff, but you're also probably going to see some stuff you haven't seen before, whether it's schematically or from a personnel standpoint. So being able to kind of do your best as coaches to rein that in and just put your guys in a position where they can play fast and play confident, I think is probably the biggest challenge, going into week 1.
19-3 last year, and the only touchdown I think came in the fourth quarter. Cleo scored on a run, and I call those games slobber knockers. Do you, maybe being the first game of the year, and the old adage, defense can be ahead of offense, as a coach, do you go into a game thinking it may be this kind of game, or do you just try and wait and see how it develops?
I think you kind of wait and see. Again, again, there was a little bit of unknowns for us when we went into that game last year. They had just lost a senior quarterback, so we knew Carson, the Golker kid, was still there, but didn't really know what else they had. So for us, when we went out, there was still some unknowns, and then as the game went on, I think after the first or second quarter, especially after the first and then kind of the beginning of the second, you can start to get a feel for what the game's going to be. And at that point, we kind of settled in, and I kind of knew it was going to be a defensive battle, and it was. And obviously, Schmitty came up huge for us, 4 for 5 on field goals that game. And you kind of get a feel for that probably after, as that first quarter comes to an end, that first game of the season, you're going to kind of know what type of a game it's going to be and what adjustments you're going to have to make. That's going to be huge for us, as well as, I challenge our coaches with that, is we're going to have to be able to make adjustments and put our guys in a position to have success, because we're going to see some stuff we haven't seen before.
The MIAA last year was 16-3 in non-conference games, and when you look at everybody playing, I mean, I see Central going down to Delta, Mississippi. That's going to be nice and cool, August 28th in Cleveland, Mississippi. Northwest going to Mankato. Hayes is playing Angelo again, who's been a kind of a headliner out of the Lone Star. So, as a league, how curious are you? And I'm sure you want to see some of our teams do well non-con.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, just getting up at media day, just talking to our coaches. I think we have some of the best head coaches in the country in the MIAA, and all of us want to go play a tough schedule. So I was really happy to kind of see teams go out and schedule those tough non-conference opponents, because there's not a lot of teams that want to come in and play a lot of MIAA teams. So to be able to find teams like Ferris and Grand Valley and Mankato and Angelo and a lot of those guys who are elite teams, in their conferences as well, to be able to get these really cool, I think, preseason, if you want to call them, non-conference games, kind of like you see at the FBS level a little bit. Some of those season openers, when you get those big matchups to start the season, I think it's really cool, not just for our conference, but for Division II football as a whole.
We'll find out soon enough how it plays out for the MIAA and Pittsburg State. With that, we are out of time for this season opening installment of the Coach Tom Anthony Show. Game Thursday at Ferris State, Michigan. That kicks off at 6 Eastern, Big Rapids, Michigan, 5 Central on our flagship, ESPN 100.7 and through the KSHQ app. Mike Snow will have Gorilla Game Day at 3. Our network pregame coverage will begin at 4. For Coach Anthony and Mariah Medeiros, our player guest, I'm Eddie Lomshek. Thanks for being with us.